It works?
Okay.
Okay, good. So first of all, I would like to thank the organizers for their invitation. I'm very sorry my Greek is very weak. I am unable to speak in Greek, and really thank you to the team of interpreters, because without them I would be totally excluded, and some people also need to understand me. So I will try to be as slow as possible to help you, but please make signs, both of you, or tell them in the headphone if I am too quick, and I will try to slow down that she can catch up with what I want to say. Thanks to Panos and Christina for their introductions. They facilitate a lot my life because I can go to the next step. So I don't have to explain again what is degrowth. I don't have to explain again what is unconditional basic income, and I will make a presentation in 3 parts. So degrowth and basic income will be my first part, so a critical approach of basic income from a degrowth point of view based on what Panos and Christina said. Second point will be about unconditional autonomy allowance, because from basic income we went to this approach of unconditional autonomy allowance, which will be like a degrowth basic income. And third part will be more about how do we start from this model of society toward a degrowth model of society in implementing step by step unconditional autonomy allowance, and using as well in one of the steps unconditional basic income. So first, a degrowth approach of unconditional basic income. So for us, when we started to think already more than 10 years ago about a political agenda or what kind of social economic proposals degrowth would offer, it was obvious that unconditional basic income, it's something which makes sense from a degrowth point of view. Because in degrowth we have a very radical critiques to the domination of work culture or work values in our model of society. Also, unconditional basic income, it's a way to disconnect our meaningful activities and economicism. It's what Panos spoke a lot about in his introduction. So for us, unconditional basic income could be a very interesting dynamic to re-embed economy, as Karl Polanyi spoke about. So to put back economy in its right place and to make us be free to refuse type of bullshit job or toxic activities what we have to accept because we need money to survive. It's like the New Economic Foundation in UK, who made studies showing that very often the more money you get, the more toxic is your job in this model of society, and the less money you get, the more useful is your job. To take 2 examples, it's like if you make fiscal optimization, you will get a lot of money, which is something about doing to legalize the way that you don't pay taxes. So it's something illegal, but you legalize it. But on the contrary, you will find women working very early in the morning before you go to work, who will clean your office or clean the hospital and everything, which is very central to make our health system workable. And they get very, very low money, and it's very precarious things. So for us, it was, for a lot of reasons, it was very interesting tool. And when there was some campaigns, because I think it's really in the beginning of the 2010s, and unconditional basic income came back into the political discussion all around Europe, in particular with a campaign, I think in 2013 or 2014, to sign a petition and to have an official debate in EU about it. We also could see that unconditional basic income, it's a tool which is not enough alone. And a tool is not enough to make a meaningful political project, and it can be very easily reappropriated by capitalism and by the system. That's why if you look at the people supporting the idea of basic income, unconditional basic income, you will find libertarians, you will find people who are in favor of green growth, who are in favor of neoliberalism or very radical liberalism, and also degrowth people, or people who are really defending the same type of value what degrowth defends, about ecofeminism, about social and environmental justice, about the transition towards sustainability, and so on and so on. So we connected unconditional basic income with a lot of other type of economic and social tools, what we started to debate on as well. Another one which is maybe as old as unconditional basic income, it's what we call acceptable maximum income. And we really believe that as soon as you speak about unconditional basic income, you should systematically connect it with a maximum income. We should have a large consensus, it's a human right in our society, that we refuse to abandon anybody toward misery, but also we reappropriate the sense of the limit. We go out of hubris in our model of society, and we say that you have a floor under which we refuse to go, and also a ceiling above it we refuse to go, because it's to go above what's happening now with rising inequalities, minority getting richer and richer and richer. It's something which is not desirable. It's something which is not sustainable from an environmental point of view, because the way of life of the richest is neither sustainable nor generalizable. We cannot all live like the oligarchs. We cannot all have helicopters and yachts and this type of thing from environmental point of view. And to achieve that, it means that these people are stealing a part of their environmental footprint to other people and exploiting also a lot of people working for them. So it's unacceptable from a social and environmental point of view. Social justice and environmental justice point of view. It's also something which is, I think, very interesting from the logic that we have to kill these myths developed in our capitalistic model of society, that to get rich, it's an objective in its own, to go to a well-being. All the studies are showing that to increase GDP, to increase how much money you get and everything, is not connected at all with your subjective well-being, and very often it's even disconnected. Yeah, there are very, very fascinating studies about the richest people showing that they are far away from being the most happy people in our model of society. So very often I say that let's implement a maximum income to make the richest people happier. So let's liberate them for their problems and so on. So to connect unconditional basic income with maximum income, and also with that idea how to re-embed the economy, how to relocalize our economies, our production, our exchange, how to implement more direct democracy in our territories and everything, how to reappropriate another type of governance on the commons and so on. We connected unconditional basic income with alternative local economic system. First with local currencies, which should be implemented in a way that with that local currency you can only buy type of things which are produced in a sustainable, transparent, fair way. Like with your local currency you should be able to buy type of locally produced seasonal organic food, for example, or local services and so on. Also to put back in the picture free access to public services and some goods. So to make exactly the contrary to what capitalism is doing. Capitalism is about commodifying everything. It started with enclosure in UK, so you expel the people from their land and you make profit on that. So we have to make the way back, or way to the other direction. So to make for free what we democratically consider as something very important to have a decent life. So to question how to make for free, for example, a certain number of liters of water, what you would use for a good use of this water, like water what you use to cook, to wash yourself, to wash the dishes, to drink and so on, should be for free. And it's an opportunity to implement some local democratic, based on direct democracy, deliberation about how much water a family needs and how do we work together to fulfill this basic need for free, and also to rethink a type of pricing where you can overconsume these goods, but you have to pay much more for misusage, so that you get for free a certain number of liters of water for good usage, but if you start to use water for your personal swimming pool or to clean your pickup truck every day or to water your golf, you will pay a very expensive price for this type of things. So it was a logic of putting together a lot of ideas, as Panos showed about degrowth. Is really a matrix of thinking, connecting together a lot of theory, a lot of proposals, a lot of deconstruction, a lot of ideologies, a lot of levels as well of implementation of the discussion and the proposals and so on. And we put everything all together and we end up with the idea of unconditional autonomy allowance. So why autonomy? It directly refers to Cornelius Castoriadis, who was a Greek but wrote and spent a large part of his life in France and was a very influential philosopher in the French degrowth movement, in particular with that idea about the institution of your imaginary. So autonomy with unconditional autonomy allowance for us is not only a social or economic tool for more social and environmental justice, but it's maybe first a tool of decolonization of our imaginary. How we can implement discussion, thinking in our society to reappropriate in a meaningful way, in a democratic way, the question of what are our basic needs and how do we fulfill them in a sustainable, transparent, fair, democratic way. So what do we produce, how, for what kind of usage? So unconditional autonomy allowance is necessarily, like what I spoke about before with unconditional basic income, connected to implemented with maximum income. And it's like the same logic of unconditional basic income with only one main difference, that a large part of it would be decommodified, wouldn't be given in cash, wouldn't be given in euro, but it would be given in local currencies. It would be given in accesses to services, so free access to services, and also accesses to certain types of goods. So services would be, for example, free health for everybody. But if it's to have the same type of health system what we are right now, which is in the hand of the pharmaceutical lobby, so we have a way of life which creates a lot of disease through stress, through bad quality foods, through a lot of chemical pollutions, etc., etc. And to have a health system which is still in the hand of profit and pharmaceutical companies, it doesn't make sense. So it's an opportunity to provide free access to health to the people, to re-question what is a healthy way of life. So how to get rid of stress in our society, how to reappropriate healthy food, how to reappropriate healthy way of life. Back to Hippocrates, who says that your medicine will be your food and not what we do now, only to have palliative approaches toward that. Free access is also to services like public transport in a local way, free accesses to education, for example, to services, what you need to get when somebody next to you dies. I think it's something which should be free and organized by the community to get the services, how to implement the funerals for free and so on, and not to make business on that, and people are making money in a time where you are very weak emotionally and so on. So there are a lot of things what you can put in these free accesses, and I would say that it's very important to implement locally dialogue, deliberation, democratic discussion about what is important for you to be free and what is important for you to be out of this logic of capitalism and profit and to be decommodified. Also towards that you could get a lot of goods like food, ideally with local currency, so you implement all around the world the local currency which is connected to a local food system which would be seasonal, sustainable, organic, transparent, maybe participatory and so on. You could get water, you could get a certain number of square meters to have a decent accommodation for free. Also to have what we have today, spaces, what you can reappropriate for meaningful activities, which could be about dancing, it could be about having a coffee, it could be about playing with the children and everything. So how to reappropriate the spaces and what communist capitalism started to do, so to appropriate the spaces, and you need to have a job to have a space to live and so on. So reappropriation of the commons from this logic is very important. And you can put a lot of things. And again, what's important is the discussion what you implement. You change your approach, you decolonize your imaginary, you re-embed the economy, or you exit out of economicism. Because to quote Mark Twain, if you have a hammer in your brain, you will see all the problem looking like nails. And the dominant hammer in our brain nowadays is economy. When we see a problem, we will think about how much euros in cost. But it's not about how much euros in cost. It's how do we organize each other in a democratic, fair way to fulfill the problem, or to solve the problem and fulfill the basic needs and everything. So this is the large picture about unconditional autonomy allowance connected with maximum income, a type of idea giving from birth to death unconditionally, like a basic income, to everybody based on individual approach, what we democratically consider as enough to have a decent life. And partly it can be given in euros, partly it can be given in local currencies, and also in free accesses to services and goods. How to go there? Because our model of society is quite far away from this logic and this approach. We see different steps in the implementation of such unconditional autonomy elements. And again, I repeat myself on purpose, that the main goal is maybe not to achieve it from a technical point of view or economic point of view, but what's the most important is to decolonize our imaginary in phrasing the problem in a different way and start to think about how to fulfill our basic needs, not based on capitalistic approach, but based on how do we self-organize ourselves to provide all the services which are needed to give a decent life to everybody and to reshare, to rethink another type of governance in the commons and everything. So the first step, it's already happening. It's what we do, for example, today. It's about all the discussion, emerging debates happening in our society. It's about the consciousness which is rising very, very quickly nowadays about the physical limits to growth, about climate change, about biodiversity loss, about over-consuming, about a lot of things where people start more and more to understand that our model of society, our thermo-industrial civilization, which only rely on always more and economic growth, is neither sustainable nor desirable. So you have some cultural dynamics which are very interesting, and these cultural dynamics also find a space in experimentation around the collective level of degrowth, around the local initiatives. It's something you can find everywhere all around Europe, all around the world, with also very interesting dynamics. It's all these local initiatives like local currency, like transition network, like community gardens, like do-it-yourself. I can give a lot of examples about that, and it's very interesting because you can find very, very strong dynamics with a lot of creativity, with a lot of enjoyment of life. And I don't say that it's very easy to create your own initiative, because you have to fight with the economic system which is killing this type of creativity and this type of fair, sustainable, transparent, democratic ways to reappropriate and invent new ways to produce, to share, to consume, and so on. Also, it's very interesting to see a lot of converging surveys about behavior change nowadays in our society. And again, all around the world, more and more people are in this dynamic about zero waste, about eat less meat, about stop traveling for no reason, to take an airplane every weekend to go to a air-conditioned center in Greece or in Tunisia or in Turkey or wherever and everything. It's far away from being the majority, but the dynamics are very interesting toward that. And there are people who don't change their behavior but start to understand that we have to change our behaviors and so on. And what's the most interesting also, there are very interesting indicators about that. Yeah, there are very interesting indicators about that, that more and more people, even if they cannot make a step aside to change their habits, to quit their bullshit job and to create their own cooperative or to go into solidarity economy, but the interest into it and the will to go out of the system and do something else is very high, in particular among the younger generation. For example, and I will take only one example because time is running, in France there was a very interesting petition signed by students in an elite school. We have a very elitist system, and we have these grandes écoles, these great schools which are elite universities, and among the students, 30,000 of them signed a petition saying that we refuse what is taught in these universities, because what is taught in these universities is driving our civilization to the wall, to the collapse, and we refuse to work for the corporation only in the logic of profit. We want to have meaningful activities. We want to have a life which really fulfill the basic needs of the people around. And it's coming from the elites in France and so on. So, and I can give you a lot of other examples in particular among the younger generation, like the Fridays for Future, which are fantastic movement and very spontaneous movement with high school students blocking large cities all around the world for the future and to change the system and so on.
Which year?
I guess, yeah. I guess so. And so you have the first level that transition is already underway with a lot of contradiction, because you also have the dominant world with more and more technocracy, bureaucracy, rising inequalities, oligarchic system, police repression. I even don't speak about how France became a very authoritarian country with very violent police repression in the last months and so on. But you have this dynamic on which we can start to construct the transformation of the society, and from a grassrooted approach in developing always more and more in a decentralized way cooperatives, behavior change and so on, we can have a radical transformation of our model of society and step by step implement unconditional autonomy allowance. But as Panos said, degrowth is not only about grassroots movement, it's to connect it with different type of transformation. And we think that we need to have resistance to block what's happening with the dominant system. In particular nowadays, there is a huge amount of money put in the system to invest in a lot of useless large-scale infrastructure projects, to invest in, for example, shale oil, shale gas, to look for more energy, to look for more resources and this type of thing. So we have to fight and resist against this growth paradigm, against this always more profit, against this quantitative easing, against rising inequalities, against fiscal evasion, and so on and so on. So you need to have resistance, and you also need, connected to that, to have a political agenda. And the first step, which I think could work and where we could find a very large consensus all around Europe, would be the idea to work less, to give a chance for everybody to have a job. Because in a society dominated by the centrality of work, it's very violent if you are unemployed. You are excluded from the society and everything. So it could be a step toward the implementation of unconditional basic income. And in doing so, you will liberate some free time to a lot of people who have to accept bullshit job what they are not happy with. And with that free time, they could be involved more and more in care, in reading books, in talking to each other, in implementing community gardens, in being active in the transformation of this solidarity economy, and going out of the centrality of economy, what we are dying on. The next step will be the implementation of unconditional basic income. As you say, that it's much more effective and easy to implement than the type of welfare state that we are right now, which is ineffective and very bureaucratic. So it's to give for everybody the right, like we can do it on different levels, and there are already municipalities or even a district in the city of Budapest implementing. So you can really start low scale or larger scale. So let's say let's do it globally on the EU level, that we say on EU, every EU citizen has a basic income, which is enough in euro to have a decent life. So you can implement it, but it has to be embedded into a political agenda. So back to the dynamics what we have in our society, so it should go through cultural changes and behavior changes and the implementation of alternatives on the local level, and also a network of these alternatives with dialogue, and it's what we call open relocalization, that we have to relocalize, but we have to stay connected to create solidarities and dialogue, and also to learn from each other and so on. For example, I think if you implement such an unconditional basic income, you should implement parallelly to that, of course, the maximum income, but already, let's say that we start from 1 to 100 maximum income, and we give 10 years to go to 1 to 4, that all around the society you have a ratio from 1 to 4 from the minimum income and the maximum income. And also you have to regulate things like advertisement, because I think to implement the unconditional basic income in a society where advertisement is so much dominant, you will create type of contradictory situation. It's what's happened in France, for example, when the socialists implemented the 35 hours per week. The next candidate for the presidential election who was elected was work more to earn more. So somehow there was some conflict that on one hand we explained to the people that you're going to work less, you will be happier, but you will have less money, but you will be happier. And on the other hand, people went home, watched TV, And they got this narrative that to be happy you need to buy a bigger car, you need to buy a bigger screen and everything. So there was some cognitive dissonance in this perspective. So yeah, how to regulate this advertisement and everything. And doing so, you can also rethink how to re-embed the economy in reappropriating the finance system. So to question what is public debt, I think it's a very tough question in a country like Greece, because you suffered so much from this big lie and this big myth constructed about public debt and the type of economic regulation you have to implement to reimburse a debt which will never be reimbursed. To rethink what is money creation, what's the role of a central bank, to control the bank system and finance and so on. And step by step, starting from this unconditional basic income, you can demonetarize in a decentralized way, in a relocalized way, this basic income toward unconditional autonomy allowance. And I conclude, I won't be too long, last sentences. You start, for example, in a city like Thessaloniki, and you have a basic income which is like 600 or 700 euros for every citizen of Thessaloniki, and you already implemented a system with the water which is public, transparent, managed by the local citizens, and you get for free the first liters of water what you need to have a meaningful usage of it. So you don't get any more with 700, but you get 600 plus free water. You implement also with a network of community gardens and local food production around the city, which is organic, seasonal, sustainable, and so on, a type of food system with a local currency where everybody can get the food with that local currency from a local point of view. So you don't get any more with 600 plus water, but you get the local currency, 400 euros, and the free water. And it's a way to re-embed the economy, or it's a way to go out of economicism and to have a different type of things in putting in the center free accesses, reciprocity economy, local economic system, and also to let some space for the market and to have good balance between all of them. So thank you very much for your attention.